One of the ways in which many of the world's religions are alike is that some of their most fundamental beliefs, such as the Golden Rule, are often derived from the teachings of a group of individuals known as mystics. These men and women attribute their religious insight not so much to years of practice and study and prayer, as to a very brief but profound experience called enlightenment or awakening. Some describe it as being reunited with God. In the simplest form of this experience, the mystic is momentarily transformed from being aware of the world outside themselves, as we always are, to being aware as the world, as if they were everywhere at once, or as if the entire universe and God were contained within themselves. They say that the only reason that the world and God appear to be outside of us is because we imagine ourselves to be separate and apart from them, that we have dreamed up this notion that we are distinct individuals, and that it's that separates us from the world and God. Now, there's no scientific evidence for that whatsoever. The very purpose of science is to study the world outside of us, precisely because it's obviously real and it's obviously not us. So why do our religions rely so heavily on what these mystics say? I tried to answer that in a short book titled Jacob's Mirror, A Reconciliation of Science and Religion. And in it, I propose a way of testing this mystic's claim that there is this unseen unity underlying everything. And the test involves a very familiar strategy for solving problems, employed by many people of faith. Now, the usual way we solve our problems, of course, is to do something about them. You change or you fix whatever it is you don't like. You work and you work, you fight if you have to, and you never give up until your problem is solved. Now, that sounds so obvious that it's easy to forget that you supposedly can solve your problems by resisting the urge to do so much to prevent or avoid them, and instead leaving them up to God to solve or not, however is best. The point being that if it actually were possible to change the course of events outside yourself, not by doing anything, but simply by adopting an attitude inside, this might be evidence of that deep oneness that connects everything, as the mystics claim. Of course, most people are pretty skeptical that trusting God actually works. So I'll just say that I've tried it, and I think it does work. It's not easy, and it takes some practice. And in the middle of a crisis, you do what the crisis demands. But trusting God is not positive thinking, and it's not praying and asking God to do something for you. You have to give up wanting things to come out the way you would like. And you have to leave yourself vulnerable to your problem. But when I am able to do that, something usually comes along to take care of my problem for me. Now, for a long time after that started happening, when the solutions to my problems were just delivered to me like that, I was sure I must be kidding myself or fooling myself, because you can't change the way things happen out in the world just by changing the way you think and feel. And besides, the solutions were always just ordinary events. They were just things that I hadn't anticipated, but they could have happened anyway. There was nothing miraculous about them. What finally convinced me, however, after trusting God had worked dozens of times, was realizing that I couldn't possibly be this lucky, so fortunate that all these problems would just happen to take care of themselves, right when I decided not to do anything about them. Think of it this way. If trusting God didn't work, it would be the worst possible strategy for solving problems, because none of your problems would get solved, and they would all just overwhelm you eventually. Trusting God would be an evolutionary dead end. But instead, there have been a lot of people for a very long time who have calmly been telling us that they live by it because it does work. And I rely on it more and more all the time. So whether you're persuaded or not by the reasoning in Jacob's Mirror, you can always try this and see for yourself. If trusting God works, it should work for you. And you won't have to take anyone's word for it. Thanks for listening.